Title: Pope Leo XIV, a voice of the heart, a bridge of encounter, a life in service. In an age marked by division and noise, the Church has found in Pope Leo XIV a quiet yet powerful answer, a man of encounter, of deep listening, and of the heart. Known for his authentic humility and deeply personal closeness to the people, Leo XIV is not merely a spiritual leader, he's a shepherd who walks among his flock, speaks their language, and listens with his soul. He does not lead from above, but from beside, embodying the tender presence of a church that lives with and for its people. Gifted with an extraordinary command of languages, fluent in English, Spanish, Italian, French, and Portuguese, and deeply versed in Latin and German, Pope Leo XIV uses words not as instruments of prestige, but as tools of communion. Each language he speaks is a bridge across cultures, continents, and hearts. But beyond his linguistic skill lies a greater gift, the art of encounter. He understands, as St. Paul wrote, that the Church must be all things to all people, that by all means some might be saved. 1 Corinthians 9:22. His fluency is not a mere academic accomplishment. It is the fruit of a missionary soul, one that longs to understand before teaching, to draw near before speaking. Like Christ, who became flesh and dwelt among us, John 1:14. Leo XIV does not speak from a pedestal, but from within the human experience, with gentleness and warmth. Wherever he goes, he brings not just words, but a living presence, a presence that comforts, understands, and inspires. His knowledge of both modern and ancient languages reflects his deep connection to the Church's tradition, while empowering him to engage the pressing questions of our time. His grasp of Portuguese builds heartfelt ties with communities from Brazil to Angola, Portugal to Mozambique. His Spanish flows with the rhythm of Latin America, a continent that shaped his heart and vocation. In Italian and French, he moves naturally through the ecclesial and diplomatic realms, and through Latin, he keeps alive the timeless voice of the Church's memory. Yet his truest language is that of compassion, service, and hope. The Lord God has given me a well-trained tongue, that I might know how to speak a word to the weary. Isaiah 54. That is Pope Leo XIV, a man whose words heal, whose silence comforts, and whose gaze affirms the dignity of every person. In an era starved for authenticity, he restores trust with simplicity. In a world of walls, he builds bridges with sincerity. And through every language he speaks, entire cultures feel seen, valued, and embraced. Leo XIV does not speak only with his mouth, he speaks with his heart. And his heart, formed by the gospel, echoes that of the Good Shepherd, who knows each of his sheep by name and calls them in a voice they recognize. May his papacy, like his voice, be clear, compassionate, and spirit-filled, so that all may be one. John 17:21, in the only language that needs no translation, love. A life shaped by mission, from Chicago to the chair of Peter. Born on September 14, 1955, in Chicago, Illinois, Robert Francis Prevost was raised in a home deeply rooted in faith and family. The son of Louis Marius Prevost, of French-Italian heritage, and Mildred Martinez, of Spanish descent, he grew up immersed in a mosaic of cultures and traditions that would one day shape his universal mission. This multicultural upbringing was not a coincidence, but a divine preparation for the path ahead, a living answer to Christ's command, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature," Mark 16:15. From an early age, he felt the quiet call to consecrate his life to God and to others. He entered the Order of St. Augustine, inspired by the restless seeker of Hippo, who pursued truth with unrelenting fervor. Ordained a priest in 1982, his vocation was never about prestige. It was about being a reflection of Christ's mercy among the humble. He lived as Jesus taught that whoever wants to be greatest among you must be your servant. Matthew 23:11. His love for mission drew him beyond the borders of his native land. From 1985 to 1998, he served as a missionary in Peru, eventually becoming a naturalized citizen. There, among the poor and forgotten, he discovered the living face of God. He served as pastor, educator, and formator, walking alongside people scarred by suffering but rich in faith. Immersed in Andean culture, he learned to listen before he spoke, to accompany before he taught, to serve before he was recognized. Like the Good Samaritan, he did not pass by wounds. He stopped, touched them, and made them altars. That experience would forever mark his pastoral vision and ecclesial identity. He came to see mission not as an option, but as the beating heart of the church. As St. Paul declared, "Woe to me if I do not preach the gospel," 1 Corinthians 9:16. In 2014, he was appointed Bishop of Chiclayo in northern Peru, where he continued to be a shepherd who smelled of the sheep. In 2023, he was called to Rome to serve as prefect of the dicastery for bishops and president of the Pontifical Commission for Latin America, roles of immense responsibility, yet he remained the same, a missionary soul with a listening heart and a compassion that reached the most wounded places. But God, who prepares paths in silence, had yet another call. On May 8, 2025, white smoke rose above Rome. The bells rang out, and the world heard those familiar words, Habemus Papam. The missionary from Chicago, the servant of the Andes, became the successor of Peter, the universal pastor of the church. He chose the name Leo XIV, evoking both strength and tenderness, wisdom and courage, virtues needed to steer the bark of Peter through the storms of today. His election was more than a historical milestone. He became the first pope born in the United States. It was a testament to a deeper truth, that greatness in the church is not measured by ascent, but by descent, into service, simplicity, and fidelity. As God promised through the prophet Jeremiah, "I will give you shepherds after my own heart, who will feed you with knowledge and understanding," Jeremiah 3:15. Now as Pope Leo XIV, he carries the cross of universal shepherding with the same reverence he once showed kneeling before the poor of Peru. His story is not one of rising to power, but of falling deeper into love. Love for Christ, for the church, and for a wounded world in need of healing. From that depth, his spiritual authority is born. May his life continue to be light for the nations, comfort for the suffering, and a sign of God's tenderness in our time. In his witness, we glimpse the face of Christ the servant, who came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Mark 10:45. And with him we walk forward in hope, trusting that the Spirit still guides the church with wisdom, mercy, and truth. Leo XIV, shepherd of the Spirit, servant of the gospel. In 1977, while many of his peers envisioned careers in science or academia, Robert Francis Prevost was quietly listening to a different voice, one that echoed deep within his soul, calling him toward a higher purpose. He had just completed a degree in mathematics at Villanova University, a path that promised stability and prestige. Yet like the young Samuel who whispered, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening," 1 Samuel 3:10, Robert felt compelled to surrender his life to the mystery of God's calling. That same year, he entered the novitiate of the Order of St. Augustine, exchanging the formulas of numbers for the divine logic of love. In the school of silence, prayer, and obedience, his vocation matured. By 1981, he professed his solemn vows, sealing his lifelong commitment to God. A year later, on June 19, 1982, he was ordained a priest, not for recognition or ambition, but to serve as Christ did, not to be served, but to serve and to give his life. Mark 10:45. From that moment on, his life would belong entirely to the people of God. Understanding that mission demands not only zeal but wisdom, he pursued higher studies in Rome, earning a licentiate and doctorate in canon law at the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas. There, he immersed himself in the Church's legal tradition, a discipline that safeguards justice, but which in his hands became a blend of juridical clarity and pastoral compassion. As Proverbs reminds us, by wisdom a house is built, and through understanding it is established. Proverbs 24:3. Yet his deepest longing was not for academic halls or ecclesial offices. His heart beat with missionary fire. He yearned to find Christ among the poor, the forgotten, the humble. That yearning led him to Peru, where he ministered first between 1985 and 1986, and more fully from 1988 to 1998. In the Andean highlands, amidst hardship and hope, he became a pastor, professor, and brother. He did not merely serve, he belonged. Naturalized as a Peruvian citizen, he became one with the people who had welcomed him. His life during those years was a living echo of St. Paul's affirmation, "I can do all things through him who strengthens me." Philippians 4:13. He did not shrink from challenge, nor lose joy in adversity. Instead, he became a visible sign of God's presence, a gospel lived rather than preached. His ministry was not about holding titles, but about holding hands, mending wounds, breaking bread, and planting seeds of hope in wounded soil. In 2014, the Church recognized his pastoral fidelity by appointing him Bishop of Chiclayo in northern Peru. There, for nearly a decade, he remained a shepherd close to his people, walking with them, listening and loving. He led not with authority imposed, but with a father's heart, echoing the pastoral vision of Pope Francis, who called bishops to carry the smell of the sheep. In 2023, that same pastoral spirit led Pope Francis to summon him to Rome and entrust him with two of the Church's most critical responsibilities: Prefect of the Dicastery for Bishops and President of the Pontifical Commission for Latin America. In those roles, he became a key figure in the discernment of episcopal leadership across the world, a bridge between Rome and the vibrant, suffering, and faithful peoples of Latin America. With humility, he embraced this task, guided not by personal ambition, but by trust in the Spirit's promise. The Holy Spirit will teach you at that moment what you should say. Luke 12:12. And then, on May 8, 2025, in the sacred stillness of St. Peter's Square, the ancient words rang out once more, Habemus Papam. The world turned its gaze to a man who had walked quietly and faithfully with God, a missionary from Chicago, a bishop from the Andes, now Pope Leo XIV. His name, chosen with prayerful intention, speaks volumes. Leo, evoking strength and courage. He's standing in continuity with a church that looks to the future without forgetting its roots. He is the first pope born in the United States, but more than a milestone, his election is a message. It proclaims that greatness in the church is not born of status, but of service. That holiness is not a distant ideal, but a daily fidelity to the voice of the shepherd. In his first words as Pope, Leo XIV offered heartfelt gratitude to Pope Francis, whom he called brother and guide. With sincerity and serenity, he pledged to walk with the people of God, his gaze fixed on Christ the servant. His tone was calm, his message clear. The Church will remain rooted in compassion, communion, and justice. Leo XIV is not just a leader, he is a pastor with the heart of a servant. His closeness to the marginalized, his life of simplicity, and his deep love for the poor mark him as a pontiff for these times, a church not of privilege, but of presence. As the prophet Isaiah once declared, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor." Isaiah 61:1. That is the mission Pope Leo XIV embodies, to comfort, to accompany, to uplift. His fluency in English, Spanish, Italian, French, Portuguese, and his knowledge of Latin and German is not mere academic prowess. It is a gift of communion. He does not speak to impress, but to connect, to listen, to embrace. In every language he speaks, a people feels seen. In every word he shares, hearts feel heard. Through this gift, he builds bridges where the world erects walls. Now, as the successor of Peter, Leo XIV takes the helm of the Church amid the storms of division, secularization, and human suffering. But his journey, shaped by missionary humility, juridical wisdom, and evangelical courage, assures us that the hope of Christ endures. He is a leader who brings together tradition and renewal, strength and tenderness, doctrine and mercy. Under his guidance, the Church does not retreat into nostalgia, nor leap into novelty for novelty's sake. Instead, it moves forward with discernment, open to the Spirit, faithful to the gospel, and attentive to the wounds of the world. As the risen Christ once said to Peter, so now is Leo XIV called. Feed my sheep, John 21:17. May Pope Leo XIV's pontificate shine as a beacon of mercy, a refuge for the forgotten, and a voice of peace in a noisy world. May his life, rooted in love and forged in service, remind us all that the greatest language the Church can ever speak is the one without borders, the language of love. A time for hope, a time to walk together. Now more than ever, the world is crying out for signs that love, justice, and mercy are not just ideals, they are alive, possible, and within reach. The election of Pope Leo XIV is more than a historic moment. It is a stirring call to inner renewal, to listening to the Spirit, and to committing ourselves once again to the suffering and forgotten. His life, shaped in silence, service, and compassion, calls each of us to rise, to step forward, and to become light for others. We cannot remain indifferent. The witness of Leo XIV challenges us, moves us, inspires us. He reminds us that holiness is born in the everyday, in the fidelity of small choices, in the courage to love beyond reason. The Church he envisions, humble, near, rooted in faith and tender with the broken, needs hearts that still dare to dream, to give, to believe. You are a vital part of this mission, whether through your prayer, your service, your compassion, or your forgiveness. The world needs the most beautiful part of who you are. Let yourself be touched by this moment. Allow God's call to echo in your soul once again, as it did in the beginning, as it did in that first silent yes that changed everything. Now it is your turn to say, "Here I am, Lord." Under the shepherding of Pope Leo XIV, may we all become a church that goes forth, a church with a human face and the heart of Christ. The time is now, hope is real, and the gospel, when lived with radical love and tenderness, still has the power to renew the world. Will you walk with us?